Are you going to privatize the ambulance service?
That's a tricky question, okay, and I don't mean that in any way to avoid the question, but running an ambulance service is very complicated in that there are many different types of medical calls. You need to have the right equipment, the right manpower to serve those calls, and when you take on that promise to your citizens that you're going to run an ambulance service and that you're going to save their lives and bring them to the hospital, then you need to live up to that commitment. And if you don't live up to that commitment, then you need to determine why it is that you haven't lived up to that commitment. Is it because you can't possibly do it? Is it because you have people running the system who are running it wrong? Is it because you have some other problem? We don't know. There are many communities who use a private ambulance. They're happy with that. There are other communities like Maplewood that have an ambulance service that are happy with their program. And so Maplewood is at that crossroads where they have to decide. And for years and years and years, those calls that are covered by folks who have Medicare coverage, the Medicare does not cover the cost that Maplewood charges. And there's always been this question about why does Maplewood charge over $1,000 for an ambulance call when Medicare only pays about $375? Because Medicare actually has different rates throughout the country based upon whether or not it's rural, it's metro, where you are, how far you are. They have it all calculated out. And for whatever reason, Maplewood, with having a hospital right in its own community, still has to charge exorbitant fees, which are on the high end. It's not like we have to drive to the hospital that is in Stillwater.
Right.
Our hospital is right in town, okay? So why is this? Well, that's for other minds to do an analysis, but it's got to be done. And I suspect some of the answers, but I need to see the data before I can actually conclude that I've come to the right conclusion. Some seniors are concerned because they know that their Medicare will not cover the ambulance ride. They know that the difference, they're concerned that, okay, who's going to be responsible for that difference, you see. And that's part of also that fear about that they don't know what happens, so they're thinking, oh, I just don't want to have to risk that somehow or other, that maybe I'll find a different way to the hospital. And it shouldn't be that way, you see. No. It shouldn't be that way. And of course the city has certain requirements that, that they can't, that they cannot bill that individual for the difference between the Medicare and what that bill is. And so what does that mean? Well, then that means then that the city has to then write that off. Well, the city writes that off, so then that means then they increase the ambulance bill or the charge individually even higher again the next year, trying to recover that which they were unable to recover. See, so it's sort of a vicious cycle, and I think that we do have to look at that again. We looked at it back in 2007, I believe it was, but I think it's time to reanalyze the numbers and the calculations.